This is Working for Progress, a podcast that connects us through conversations about how we craft our working lives and make progress. We'll be joined by our communities from Tribe Porty and Keystone. Tribe Porty is a community co-working space and creative hub. We are full of entrepreneurs, social enterprises, freelancers, charities, and SMEs. Keystone is the other social enterprise which supports women to reimagine their working lives. We do this by providing a holistic approach to business through courses, programs, mentoring, group coaching, and events.
Welcome to today's conversation. I'm Alice, the community manager at Tribe Porty.
And I'm Dani, founder and director of both Tribe Porty and Keystone.
Here at Working for Progress, we're all about connecting good people, sharing their stories, their challenges, and the progress they make for themselves and for others. We hope this podcast challenges your ways of thinking and inspires you to work for progress.
Working for Progress starts with simple pleasures, finishes in awe, and meanders through career journeys in between. Today we welcome Nicky Shallcross. To date, Nicky's career has been spent heading up buying and merchandising teams in the fashion and outdoor retail industry. In 2022, she took the plunge and started her own online homeware business. Nicky's also passionate about volunteering. She's a friendship volunteer for Vintage Vibes, where she also works part-time, and as someone like me, volunteer for Breast Cancer Now. Welcome, Nicky.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for coming in. We always start out nice and simple. We would love to know your 5 simple pleasures.
Okay. For me, I love clothes. I love colour. I love wearing colourful clothes. Preferably wearing items with fringes as well.
I know, I wish we were recording video here because you do always look amazing.
I think for me, like clothes and colour is like a superpower, and it really helps me feel more uplifted and happy. And it sounds like it's a bit of a frivolous thing, but that kind of like getting dressed and, you know, I've really tried to edit my wardrobe so my stuff that I wear, it's stuff I like, and it makes me happy, it makes me feel confident. And yeah, and as I said, the fringe side of things, I do love a fringe on shoes, bags, anything else. And yeah, I'd go as far to say it's actually a secret to a happy life if you wear more fringes. So that's probably one of my top tips. If you don't take anything else from this, I would go with that.
I like it. Live on the fringe. I feel like there's a business in there somewhere. Nikki.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. My next one is perfume. Again, sounds a little bit random, but I've got a really, really strong sense of smell, which is not always a good thing, to be honest, in certain situations. So I like to wear a scent around me to almost like create my own scented environment. And yeah, wearing perfume for me, it helps with, you know, it's like a mood enhancer for me. It can make me feel quite grounded and quite centered as well. So it's an expensive habit, yes. But yeah, it's the one thing I cannot leave my house without. So perfume.
Okay, nice. So look good, smell good.
Absolutely, yeah. So we will get a little bit more deeper. So this might make you sound like, you know, like quite vain. So I think, you know, listening to some of your other guests, I think this is one of probably just quite a really popular one, but just that sense of, you know, adventure and traveling. And you know, me and my husband have been so fortunate to go to lots of different places in the world, and I just think that different perspective, different landscapes, different people, trying to actually communicate with people in different languages, even if you can't speak them. So that's really exciting, and I think it's actually one of the best investments that you can actually make. You'll always get a reward in the memories, so definitely travel. My 4th one is just having a good giggle and a laugh. And you know, like one of those absolute, like proper belly laughs where it kind of almost then goes to the fact that you're laughing, but then you're silent and you've got the silent kind of tears as well. Yeah. So I think there's something that's just so important about that, and just being a bit silly at times. So yeah, laughing is definitely one of them. And then my 5th is just spending time with good people, and that's good people that I love and care about, or actually just people that inspire me. And I think, you know, it's important to like pick the people around you in your life and to have people that uplift you, inspire you, but they're your cheerleaders as well. But importantly, you do the same for them as well. And that's what makes that just a really lovely kind of, just process, really. Yeah. So those are my things.
Thank you very much. I love them. We haven't had closer perfume before. Very good. I like it. And the laughing, actually, I don't know that we've had that either.
I like that one.
Yeah. I know. I think lately I've been thinking about, I haven't belly laughed as much as I need to be laughing. And then you're thinking, well, how do I make that happen more in my life? Maybe it's just a kind of time where things are a little bit more serious or something. I don't know. But yeah.
I try to find silliness in the mundane.
Yeah.
And I'm a super fan of The Voice Note. Not everybody is. And I'm quite prolific with my cousin, and we just send these ridiculous updates on the most stupidest, really quite boring things, but we're just giggling all the time. And so it doesn't have to be like a really, like, it's not that you've got to go and see a comedian or anything like that. It can be, finding fun in the mundane is, the surreal, that actually makes me particularly happy, actually.
I think that's a good point. I think you can actually build it in, and the more you do it, like the more you indulge in your silliness, I think the more you are able to be silly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take yourself a bit too seriously, so I'm speaking to myself, really.
Absolutely. Why are you looking at me?
Please say you agree with me. Okay, that's just me. Fair enough. Coming on to the values, we'd love to hear about what your values are, your top values, and how your current work lets you live those values out, if they do.
Okay. So how to kind of go into this, because I've actually got, I'm very clear on what my values are. And interestingly, if you'd asked me this like several years ago, it's not that I didn't have values. I just had no morals or anything like that. It was more like, if people say to you, what other values do you live your life by? And I think everybody has them, but sometimes they're just a bit hidden and they're not like really obvious what really makes you tick. So for me, mine are truth and honesty, fairness and justice, courage and determination, and just living your life with empathy for others. So there are obviously, like, I've got other things as well, but if I was to really just strip everything back, and I know these to be true, and I'll tell you why I know them to be true, because these actually were really tested for me a few years ago. I had a very random bout of breast cancer a few years ago, and I'm absolutely fine now. But what happened was, it was a really long process for me to get diagnosed, in that I had the symptoms, I did all the right things, I saw multiple doctors, and I basically just wasn't taken seriously and wasn't given the tests. So nobody did a scan, nobody did a biopsy, and I just knew that there was just something wrong, and I just thought, I can't let this lie. So I just kept on at them. If I didn't like an answer from a certain GP, speak to someone else. So I was really quite relentless with it. So anyway, got in front of somebody, finally got a biopsy and got the results of that. And to be honest, all hell broke loose. I got my results and I was told that I had to go to hospital the next day. So I was like, oof, okay, I've gone from nothing to this. The hard thing for me at that point was that it wasn't so much, I never thought, why me, this is unfair. And when I'm talking about my values of fairness, it wasn't to do with me that, like, thinking, God, poor me. Because statistically, why not me? It can happen to any of us. The thing that really, really got to me was the fact I knew that clearly I'd had this. By that point, I'd had it for 2 years.
Wow.
And it was that absolute injustice of, I was speaking up, I was really doing everything I could, but I just couldn't, get to where I needed to be. And I felt that I'd been blocked for treatment earlier than, at the point I actually got it. And so that was really, really difficult for me to deal with. And I didn't know, in effect, at what point I was entering this horrific membership club that I didn't want to be part of. So I didn't know if I was going to get a lifelong membership, just the basic entry level. I didn't even want basic entry level. I just wanted to go in and use the facilities, and that was it, and then go away.
Yeah.
So had an amazing consultant, got myself sorted, and then I got an all clear. And what I really rapidly realised was that all clear physically does not mean all okay. Your body's amazing, the way it can heal and get through stuff, but my head just took a lot longer to catch up. And I couldn't move on. I felt I should be happy and euphoric, but I wasn't. I was really angry with what had happened. So I saw an amazing counsellor, and she really started to unpick, and this is where the values piece came in, because she said to me, look, your core values, and she said, for you, it's this piece around the truth, honesty, fairness, justice. She said, you used your kind of determination to, really kind of go at, getting, your diagnosis. But in effect, it's like a car has crashed into your other values, and this is why you're finding it hard to move on, because you've got to find a way of like setting that straight, and how can you resolve that, and you've got to have a think about how you're going to do that. So for me in that situation, it literally was justice. I did take legal action, and it wasn't about a payout or anything like that. It was, I needed the processes to be reviewed. I needed checks to be put in place, and I really wanted to speak up so it didn't happen to someone else. Yeah. And that was one of the things. There was a number of other things I was doing as well at the time. So, but that was correcting that value, and in effect for me getting that peace and being like, I'm okay with this now. I've balanced this up and I've got an outcome that I'm happy with. That did enable me to move on. So when we talk about values, I kind of really know how catastrophic if these are really kind of out of balance or out of kilter for people, like how that can like really affect you. So I think when it, bringing it back to a work situation, your values, if you're working on an organization, in an organization or on a project, you need to value the organization you're working for, so that, you need to respect it. You need to be on board with their mission, their purpose. If you don't have that, you are not going to be motivated to add value to what that organization or project is doing. Yeah. And then it's likely that you will not feel valued for the contributions that you make. So it's actually incredibly important when it comes to what makes you tick. And sometimes if you've got a job or an employment situation you're unhappy with, it is actually because your values and they're out of kilter with whatever you're working on. So it's something, it doesn't necessarily spring to mind, but yeah, as I say, I learn in a very roundabout and very different way why these things are like so important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been thinking about this a lot lately too. That's such a good story for articulating when we have a value that we can't live out, or we're living out something that's in contrast to our value, and then we wonder why we're unhappy or unwell or mentally struggling. Because I think when that discord happens, that's when you're not integral to yourself. Yeah. So yeah, for you, and then for you to be able to recognize that experience, you weren't able to move on because it was in conflict to your values.
I felt stuck. Yeah. I really and I felt like I was just going around in circles, and I was getting frustrated with myself, but people were getting frustrated with me as well. And I just was like, I don't know what to do here, Yeah.
So I suppose that would have taken a lot out of you as well if you sought legal action. Did you feel like the NHS or the process, it changed in any way? Do you feel like positive change came from that?
I think for me, I know that I had no idea how the whole process worked, and it was interesting. It was incredibly stressful because when you're doing something like that, there are things that the whole process to me was unfair. No one was ever going to tell me that it wasn't. But when you're doing a legal claim, it has to stack up legally. So something that's maybe not fair or, it's just not right, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's wrong when it comes to the law. So actually, that process of me being like, but that shouldn't have happened. The lawyers were like, well, actually, no, I know that's illegal, bad, but it's not, so we can't, that's not going to stand up, basically. And the other thing was, like, I got to read all my medical notes as well.
That you're never allowed to read, which I find really strange.
And it was, for me, the vindication of that things in the notes were like almost like making me out to be a hypochondriac.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did you feel like there was a tinge of misogyny in there?
No, because there's women as well. It was like an absolute...
women can be misogynist.
Yeah, no, and do you know what? Absolutely fair point. I don't know what it was. I think it was just because I was maybe seen as quite a confident person that could speak up and be like, no, I don't think this is right. And I just don't think people liked that. They didn't see they hadn't, it was a really weirdo cancer that I'd got. My consultant tells me, it's basically, I'm one of his youngest patients he's ever seen. So you don't want to be a record breaker in that really situation, and be, a consultant's little, protege in that area. So yeah. But no, it's an incredibly interesting process. I had to balance up that it might not go my way as well.
Sure.
But
you're glad you pursued it.
Yes.
You needed to for yourself.
I had
and for what you felt was right.
I had to. Yeah. And I also just feel that the thing that would have got to me more was just the not knowing had I not done it. And I couldn't, that would have been a lot worse for me, actually. And I think it's always better to have a think and then be like, okay, I'm going to go for this. But then go into it knowing, how you're going to feel if that doesn't go your way. Sure. But yeah, and so yeah, as I say, it did, and but yeah, that was a big part of unlocking how I move forward, actually.
Nice, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. Back to your kind of working life journey. We'd love to hear about your most random or your worst job that you've ever had to date.
I have actually got an example of both.
Okay, let's hear them.
So my first job I would describe as kind of my worst job. Nothing crazy in the sense that I was a waitress at a local pub, but I worked in a kitchen where the chef was horrific. He was so horrible to everybody, and he didn't even call you by your first name. It was like horrible swear words, like really quite brutal and just horrible. And he had this absolute obsession with everybody's sex lives.
Sounds like a gem.
Yeah, an absolute, a really, really lovely person, and would really question you about what you got up to on the weekend, and particularly if you'd been away on holiday, and how many people were you with, and all of this. And it's just, goodness. I'd never, ever been in a situation like that. And so I just thought, I don't like this, it's not right. And so I just thought, I'm going to speak to the pub owner about this. Yeah, that didn't actually go great because the owner was just like, yeah, he's a really good chef. I'm not going to be able to replace him really easy. I can replace you. You're just a waitress. So I'm not going to do anything, and it's up to you what you want to do about this. Either put up with it or just go. Yeah. So I just thought, that again, I was 17. My authority figures in my life at that stage were my parents, and I had a great relationship with my parents, and they were like really protective people, and I kind of just saw people in authority that they helped people out if you asked for help. And I think that was a real learning for me, that I thought, okay, businesses are not really all about people and protecting people, are they? I learned that quite early on. So I thought, okay. So I just thought, well, I have got a choice, haven't I? So when this chef actually came back from holiday, and so I just thought, you're going to do exactly to you what you do to everyone else in the kitchen. So I genuinely, like, bold as brass, was like, how was your holiday? How many men did you sleep with? What did you get up to? You know? And he was like, outside and now. And I just thought, right, well, that's me getting a sack. But what actually happened was he proceeded to tell me everything that he'd done on this holiday. So I was like, this kind of presents like a different issue in a way. But I'd unwittingly totally disarmed him with how he'd been, you know, treating people. And do you know what? From that moment, he was an absolute delight to work with.
Really?
Yeah. And it was absolutely wild that I went from this kind of what he used to say. It kind of helped me out because I had an incident where I dropped a steak on someone's neck, and very specifically on someone's neck. So had I not had...
I'm not even sure how you do that.
Yeah, it was these really, really heavy plates with, like, we had this horrible thing called mixed grill, and it was like, really, really heavy plates. And I had two of them, and I, like, leant down as I put down one, and the other one slid, and it was, like, right on the neck, you know. So, but yeah, the fact I was on great terms with the chef, who was, because that is the kind of, I don't even know how to have lived through that situation otherwise. So he's perfectly fine with that, actually. So yeah, it came good in the end.
Do you think that was because he was looking for some sort of humanity and you showed him something different, a different response than your average? Or what do you think that was?
I think in the end he respected the fact I stood up to him.
Okay.
And I gave as good as I got. And that is not always going to be the best course of action in, you know, and I very much learned that as well throughout the course of my life. But yeah, I think he wasn't expecting it, you know, and I think that element of surprise, that I think he was like, oh, okay, yeah, so yeah.
I love it. Good story.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then my next, my random job was, I was talking to Alice a little bit about this, like when we just had lunch just now, and I got approached by Taizo to be the head of buying and merchandising for their bikes and skis. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I don't own a bike, can't ski. I've been on a few ski holidays, but it's more about the après.
Yep.
So I very much was like, yeah, thanks, but I'm not your person, you know, for this role. But they were like, no, we think you are. And I just was really like, no, I'm really not. And it was quite interesting, their approach, because a lot of people are like, you've got to do the exact job for us to employ you, so you can then do the exact job. And it's like, they clearly had like had a bit of a, you know, it's a very niche thing to recruit for. So they basically said to me, look, you know, we don't need any enthusiasts or experts. We've got loads of those in our business. We need somebody that takes all of that information, negotiates with our suppliers, keeps the continuity of product, does all the deals, puts a commercial range together that customers like, and ultimately makes us money. So I was like, oh, I can do that, you know. But, you know, anything else, you know, I don't know the bike bits, you know. I mean, I can point out handlebars, you know, like, you know, that was basically about it. And then, yeah, so I kind of, the more I was like, oh, no, not me. They you know, anyway, they just made me a really good offer. And I just thought, you know what, I find these people really interesting. I like that they've got a bit of a different thought process. So, yeah, so I started on March the 16th in 2020. So most people know that pretty much the next week, the whole world shut down.
Yep.
And my access to experts, well, they were all furloughed. as were the whole of the buying and merchandising team. So I had to, bikes were classed as essential retail, and I was on the senior business continuity team. So I just had to do it. I'd got a few, some really great people around me that were on the business continuity team as well. But I mean, it was literally like they'd pushed me out of a helicopter over the North Sea and given me a life jacket made of bricks. It was really, really, really quite hard. But, sometimes you just got to really go out of your comfort zone. And I can honestly say it's probably one of the times I've learned the most at work. I've always known that relationships and working with people are like super important. But because I'd got this really quite unique position in the bike industry, and it's quite, it's very male dominated, I was able to have a chat with suppliers, ask them how they were getting on, and I think a lot of people felt sorry for me as well. So I just thought, use that to my advantage. So the business, it was quite interesting. They listened, and I said, we've got to change how we work. Because at the time you were ordering a bike would get delivered to the shop like the next day. And so it's almost like a just-in-time kind of model. And I'd been very used in my previous area of buying and merchandising, working to massive long lead times, months and months in advance. So I said, you're going to have to go to that because you've got all these production shutdowns all over, all the kind of key production global capitals. You're not going to have stock. So the warehouse that you've got, you need to make space, and we need to buy as many bikes as we can. And they were on board with it, and we did it. And the business really, really benefited. But yeah, it didn't feel like it always at the time, but yeah, it was random, and it was something I would never have thought I would have ever done or I would have on my CV. But just the people and what I learned, and I met some of the most impressive people in retail I've ever come across. And yeah, so I didn't ultimately have the passion for the areas going forward, and that ultimately springboarded me to setting up my own business. And so I've got an online homeware business called Interior Superior, and it's not easy starting your own business. And it's, especially when you go from working in a big organization where lots of teams, and then you're the only person
for everything. Yes,
so you are IT, you are marketing, you are finance, and I mean, like the days when I'm IT, it's not a good day, And yeah, but because I just thought, well, if you can be in that situation, which was absolutely crazy, and it worked, give this a go.
Yeah, speaking of, our next question is around the biggest risk you took.
Okay.
Is this what we're talking about here? You got something else?
No, I mean, when I think about risks, I think ultimately you should take risks. I'm very risk positive. My husband's a government statistician, totally the opposite, to me. But I think there's something quite exciting, and I find it exciting with risk because you obviously have a think about it and it's calculated where you can. But for me, I feel that if you don't take a risk, ultimately risk brings about change. And if you don't have change in your life, you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you stand still and you stagnate.
Yep. So
for me, you do have to do these things throughout the course of your life. And the biggest risk versus the biggest reward for me was, I finished my university degree. I'd already done a work experience placement with a big footwear retailer that I used to work for. And I got offered a job for when I finished. And so the biggest risk for me was like moving from Yorkshire up to Scotland, which was like many, many miles away in my world at that time. And I didn't know really anybody. And actually by just taking that chance, I an absolutely unbelievable, career in that job, just working with all of these super cool brands, again, amazing people that, a lot of them, I've still like absolutely dear friends now. And then I met my husband. So had I not done that, I just remember getting on this train and being like, right, my parents, that's me away, and they were just like, what? Scotland? Why? And so that for me, I think it's just that, take that chance, and, a bit of risk, I think is a really good thing.
Absolutely. Agree. Yeah, rarely people say that risk I took, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Unless it was something dangerous.
I think as well with risk, like, you do, with risk, sometimes there is an element of failure, but I think sometimes, failure can feel quite painful and embarrassing at times, but again, you're not going to learn if you don't do it. So it is that whole thing of like, fail fast, and learn from it, and that's it, and move on. That's it, you're just trying. That's it. And that's all you can really do.
So you still have your own business?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And you work part-time for Vintage Vibes?
Yes, I do. And I discovered Vintage Vibes. They're an organisation in Edinburgh that works to tackle social isolation and loneliness amongst the over 60s. And I actually became one of their friendship volunteers. So I have my own friend who's 85. She's absolutely amazing, and I see her every week. And again, when it comes back to like values and what I believe in, I just really, really like what Vintage Vibes do as an organisation, and I know firsthand what a difference that makes, that lifeline of just people having somebody to chat to. And I did a survey for them like in the summer, and some of their VIPs, as they call them, that I spoke to, a few people told me that before they got involved with Vintage Vibes, the only people they spoke to during the week was like maybe a medical professional, professional. And I just thought, that's actually heartbreaking. With volunteering, it actually like led to I've got a part-time temporary kind of contract with them at the moment, and I'm helping them recruit volunteers. And I feel it's something I feel really, really passionate about, because it's not, I've kind of developed this phrase of be selfish, volunteer, which doesn't necessarily, like, people think that doesn't really go together, but you get a lot of benefits out of it as well. And I think it's not just the person that's the recipient of that, it's like a really lovely balanced ecosystem, really. So that has been very, very much enjoying that, and meeting just amazing people, and just hearing amazing stories of what people do, and especially speaking to the elderly, and the whole lives that they've lived, and especially in a city that at a time, I didn't live here then, or wasn't alive then, so something that's just so interesting, about that, and the stories.
We do have a funny culture here, I think, around the elderly. We don't respect the elderly as we should, and like a lot of other cultures naturally do. Especially Indigenous cultures, they're kind of the backbone of the community, and the wisdom, and something to be cherished and cared for. So 100% think we need to spend more time and make, well, as you say, it's not just them benefiting, it's you benefiting as well, as much.
And I think when the elderly, some of them just feel totally invisible in society. And the thing that I just kind of always think about, just think, well, that's going to happen to you one day.
Exactly. We're all going to get old.
Exactly. And I would very much be a person that would say, look, aging's actually a privilege, so don't fear it. Just really kind of embrace that. And it's just a different time in your life, or just a different period, of it. And just being able to kind of work with people and just try and be involved in something that tackles that is really, really important.
Tell us a time in either your personal or your professional life where you felt a sense of awe, or were in a state of flow.
I'm going to go for awe.
Okay, love it.
Because from a personal side of things, we had quite a serious situation to deal with, like during the pandemic, and this wasn't the bike shortage. It wasn't that. Somebody in my family was actually in a very abusive relationship, and it got to a stage where they basically had to flee, and she came to live with me and my husband up in Scotland, a long way from where she was, and she lived with us for the best part of a year because her abuser did everything to try and track her down, find her. And the way I describe it was, he was like chewing gum in her hair, applied and stuck with super glue. The way he just tried, everything. And it took a lot of involvement from police, courts, so many different things to for her to get her freedom. And for me, just seeing how she just kept on going with that process when she was let down in quite a few different ways, but she just kept on going, and how she has now flourished and the achievements that she's making in her career, and the fact that she really is open to having like another relationship, and given everything she's been through, I'm like, wow, okay. So that from a personal side of things. And work-wise at the moment, it's particularly with my volunteering. I volunteer for breast cancer now, as well as someone like me volunteer. So I speak to people that are going through the process of treatment of what I did several years ago, and again, just talking to people and understanding, their stories and, other things that they're dealing with in their life. I get to feel, because of the volunteering and, working with Vintage Vibes as well, I actually feel awe on a more, I feel it a lot more, which there's something really nice about that, because it's kind of just really keeps my faith in humanity, and it's I don't have to be, it's nice that that's relatively commonplace for me now, which is really lovely.
And it's all about changing your perspective, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And just how people just deal with things and certain situations that they find themselves in, and you're just, sometimes it's jaw-dropping, what people, go through.
Yeah. So slightly, you've not prepared for this question, but
oh no, okay, right.
I've been thinking about this a lot, kind of the span of someone's working life, but the entire piece, from the kind of climb to feeling like you've made it, to then thinking about, well, what does the kind of third stage of life look like? Retirement. I just wondered, because of your varied professional life, but also your involvement with Vintage Vibes, have you thought about later life, and have you thought about what that looks like?
Certain cultures don't actually have a word for retirement, and
I'd liked a new word for retirement.
Yeah, and I just think, well, do you know what? I think, I would like to always just be active, and so just having, even if it is a project I'm working on, and I think, if you do think of your working life, if you start when you're about 18, and I mean, who knows when some of us will retire now, but if it's the late 60s, it's like a period of about 50 years. So, you can have like lots of like mini career adventures, throughout that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be punctuated. It's maybe just got to match your pace of life at that period of your life. Yeah.
I love that. I'm so pleased to hear that. That's kind of similar to my thinking, but I didn't know how alone I was in that thinking.
I think it's a difficult thing to talk about sometimes, isn't it? And, because you don't like to think of yourself as getting older.
No, even if you're, 10, 20 years away from it, it feels like forever away. Yeah, amazing. That's great. Thank you so much, Nicky.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for asking me.
It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
To hear more about Tribe Porty and Keystone, you can find us on all social media platforms. Please head over to our websites and subscribe to our newsletters, which includes monthly blogs to provide helpful insights into how we craft our work and life. This has been Working for Progress. We hope you join us again.